بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وأسعد الله صباحكم ومساءكم بكل خير أينما كنتم. أرحب أنا هنا الحمراني بالحضور الكرام نيابة عن المركز الوطني للتعليم الإلكتروني بالشراكة مع المعهد الوطني للتطوير المهني التعليمي من العاصمة الرياض بالمملكة العربية السعودية، وبالتعاون مع ed3 DAO AI Literacy Partners رايكو IO في هذه الندوة الافتراضية تحت عنوان استكشاف دور الذكاء الاصطناعي كشريك معرفي في التعليم الرقمي. تستكشف هذه الندوة الافتراضية دور الذكاء الاصطناعي كشريك معرفي في التعليم الرقمي من خلال مناقشة إمكانياته في تحسين تجربة التعلم وتعزيز التفاعل بين المتعلمين والمعلمين. تهدف الندوة إلى تسليط الضوء على الاستخدام المسؤول للذكاء الاصطناعي في البيئات التعليمية، مع التركيز على أحدث الأدوات والتقنيات التي توفر تجارب تعليمية غامرة محفزة للتفكير وتساعد في تنمية المهارات المستقبلية. كما تناقش الندوة أهمية تبني التفكير الاستشرافي في تصميم وتطوير أنظمة تعليمية قائمة على الذكاء الاصطناعي، مما يسهم في تحسين جودة المحتوى التعليمي ودعم الابتكار ورفع كفاءة مخرجات التعليم الرقمي لضمان موائمته مع احتياجات المستقبل. للتنويه، ستكون الترجمة الفورية للغة العربية ولغة الإشارة متاحة خلال هذه الندوة، وبإمكانكم الضغط على أيقونة الترجمة علامة الكرة الأرضية أسفل الشاشة. بالإضافة إلى أنه يوجد استبيان في نهاية الندوة يرجى تعبئته لغرض التحسين والتطوير. I warmly welcome you to this distinguished virtual event organized by the National E-Learning Center and the National Institute for Educational Professional Development, titled by Unlocking AI as Cognitive Thought Partner in Digital Learning. Today's session aims to highlight the profound transformations within the education sector driven by rapid advancement in AI technologies. We will explore how these technologies can act as cognitive thought partners, enhancing digital education effectiveness and shaping the future of learning. It is my honor to be your moderator for this event. My name is Hana Ahmed Al-Humrani, Director of Program Analysis and Planning at the National Institute for Educational Professional Development, and a PhD researcher specializing in mathematics education and AI from King Saud University. I am delighted to be with you today to facilitate this important discussion and explore the role of AI as a transformative force in digital learning. Today, we are privileged to host a distinguished panel of experts and thought leaders in AI and digital education. Mr. Riley Walker, founder and CEO of Raiko IO, who will share his vision on designing intelligent educational systems, leveraging AI capabilities. As a dedicated education innovator, Riley has collaborated with major educational publishers and institutions, revitalization digital learning through AI-driven solutions tailored for educators and students. Welcome, Mr. Riley Walker, and the floor is yours to begin your session.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know when you can see it. All right, so I'm going to go through kind of an introduction of myself. Then I'm going to really kind of high level how AI can support education in the classroom, and then some examples. And then my colleagues will share some really practical things that you can leave this meeting with some really great tools to use. So this is my QR code. So if you scan that, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I always try to share relevant information for the world of education and doing a lot of AI stuff. So I am the founder of Raiko.io. We build custom content for classrooms. We have a platform where you're able to basically request things on demand, and part of that is RaiBot, which is our AI teaching assistant. So I'm going to get into that a little bit too. So, how can AI support education? It can do a lot of things, and it's improving every single day. So, from personalized learning, analyzing student data to tailor learning paths, curriculum development, so assisting with kind of high quality courses and lesson plans, student support, so one to one support with students. They can kind of go on their own adventure of learning. Um, Grading and assessments, automate the grading process, reducing the time for teachers. This is a big thing that we really focus on is just really making teachers' time effective in the classroom and allowing them to do what they love, which is teaching, and trying to kind of diminish and lower the amount of additional work that teachers need to do. Test preparation, so very targeted practice exercises around everything from your basic assessment to design thinking and allowing students to kind of work on problems and work with groups to figure things out together. Teacher assistance, so generating quiz and adapting materials for your classroom in real time is something AI can support with. Administrative automation, streamlining administrative tasks such as student registration, report card generation, and more. And then career guidance. So, how do students navigate this world now that AI is very much a part of it and a part of every industry? And my colleagues will kind of touch on that more later in the presentation. So, what can AI do for teachers? I just have a few examples that I want to kind of run through right now. One is really around personalized and differentiating learning. The other one is around making AI available and accessible in more immersive learning settings. And then really accessibility and localization. So in the States, we have all kinds of students that are coming from all over the world. And how do you make them feel comfortable and easy to not only understand the language, but also the culture? And AI can help a lot with that as well. And then there's AI agents, which is kind of a big buzzword in the AI world right now. But we've actually built one internally for our own team, and it's pretty wild what it can do. And I believe this will be a big thing moving forward. So personalize and differentiate learning. A great example I always use is from one of our customers. She was using our AI in the classroom, and the three kids over here have already completed their lesson. They're already done. So she needs to keep them occupied and on the lesson objectives. The three kids in the middle, right on track. The three kids on the other side of the classroom really need a lot of help, and the teacher really wants to focus, you know, his or her attention to them. The problem, though, is that these three kids over here are already done. So, how do I quickly, as a educator, give them something to do in the classroom that's relevant to the objectives of the lesson? Um, and what AI can do is say, uh, Tommy loves soccer, uh, Susie loves music, and Bobby loves science. They can quickly put in the objectives of that lesson and then relate it to those various interests that each student has and create like an enrichment activity. So they're still learning about the objectives of that lesson, but it's kind of within their own vein and their own interests, right? So, like one of my inspirations for creating uh, Ryko was the fact that growing up, I was a pretty good student, but my sister was not. She was an artist, just as smart. It just wasn't delivered to her in the right way. So I always wanted to figure out a way to personalize and differentiate that learning. Um, and so, like, had she learned math via Monet, she would have been really interested, right? But unfortunately, that wasn't the way it was delivered. So I think now we are in an era where AI can highly personalize learning for students and make it just really exciting to every student based on their interests. Um, the next thing I'll share here, and I'll share this video in a minute, but is really virtual and immersive learning. So there are spaces that are 2D like this. So this is what we call the Riverse. My whole team works out of here from the US to South Africa to India. We all like literally have a desk in the space. Um, but we call this a virtual campus. And we actually collaborated with Ed3 DAO to build this space out for us. But I kind of see this as a future because, especially ever since the pandemic, a lot of schools have gone more remote and students are a little displaced. And a colleague of mine, he called it lonely learning. So students are, learning from their parents' homes, and they kind of lack the kind of one-to-one engagement that you would typically get on a campus. And so I think the emergence of virtual campuses will be a big thing in the future. And I'll just play this video quickly, and you'll get kind of an idea of what this looks like. Um,
This isn't just a digital space, it's a fully customizable virtual campus that we've designed to foster connection, collaboration, and engagement for organizations and schools alike. Imagine having a virtual space like this for your organization, designed entirely around your needs, whether it's hosting virtual sessions, creating immersive classrooms, or building a community hub for staff and students. We specialize in crafting tailored solutions. In this environment, teams can collaborate effortlessly through video conferencing, chat tools, and interactive meeting spaces that make remote collaboration much more engaging and personal more than ever before. For schools, we can create virtual classrooms, libraries, or even entire campuses where students and educators can connect as avatars. These settings make learning interactive, engaging, and accessible from anywhere in the world. For organizations, we design training rooms, networking lounges, and virtual event venues that make remote teamwork and events feel as dynamic as being in person.
and I'll pause that there. But these spaces, you might have seen the little um, Rybot, but he looks like a robot in all the different conference rooms. The reason for that is teachers actually utilize this space for professional development reasons, for planning out their courses, for planning out their curriculum for the next year. So having kind of a virtual assistant in the room that allows them to just work faster and smarter, I believe will be happening more and more. And spaces like this can also be very student centric in the sense of students are able to go up to different AI and be able to interact with them and have highly personalized learning in spaces like this. And then it comes to accessibility and localization. So the story I always love to tell here is the woman that sits next to me in our office came from Thailand. And she came over here when she was 18 years old, and she was learning English for the very first time, but she was also in science and math class. So not only was she trying to learn English, she was also trying to understand our culture and also trying to understand, these other subjects. So the ability of AI being able to essentially, teacher can upload a lesson plan and have that translated directly into the native language of the student makes them just feel very comfortable in learning math and science, right? So the objective of the lesson is not to learn English. And so now they can actually learn it in their native tongue. And then from there too, we even have like text to speech. So if they want to click a button and have AI read it to them as if they were back in Thailand, we can do that as well. And we translate into over 120 different languages. So any students that may be coming to your classrooms that are from other places, AI is such a tool you can leverage to just really connect to your students, not just from a translation perspective, but also from a cultural perspective. And I think that's a really interesting thing that we will continue to see in AI. Um, and then finally, AI agents. So agents really, instead of you asking, GPT a specific question and it gives you this response back, agents actually think. You enable them with tools. So, for example, I've been using our internal agent a lot, and when you ask, ours is called Cognos. When you ask it a question, it will actually search the web and then it will actually do calculations, and then it will review internal documents to kind of compare what it's found on the web based on its calculations, and then reviewing that like with everything that you have internally. And you can see the way it thinks. So it actually has like little emojis that pop up as it's going through this thought process. And if you think about this, how, what the implications are for, say, all of the teachers listening to this right now. Like, imagine all of your daily tasks you can automate and have an AI agent actually do that for you, but you're seeing the way it's thinking about it. And that also gets into some kind of like prompt engineering and the best way to ask it a question. But I would say there's been massive improvements in that as of late. Um, and so I'll post these slides on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll also be shared with you after. But a lot of what I just discussed is something that I mentioned in EdTech Insiders recently, of just kind of where I see things going, which I think is much more immersive learning with the support of AI. So kind of combining these worlds of, a virtual campus and AI, and giving access to teachers and students in kind of that way. Um, and with that said, Armini is going to share all kinds of great tools and really practical things to kind of take away from this meeting. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope this was helpful.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Riley, for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here with a group of people who are so committed to learner-centered environments and building experiences that are focused on, the growth of the learner and the community as well. So I want to begin by introducing Ed3DAO. Can everybody hear me well? My screen looks good? Yeah, awesome. I want to begin by introducing the Ed3DAO mission. We are here because we want to onboard 1 million global educators into the world of emerging tech, whether that's AI, VR, AR, and much, much more. And we do that in 3 different avenues, whether that's through the coursework we develop with our university partners, our global community of practice through Mighty Networks, which I will share with you a little later, and through research and development, where we explore things such as competency-based assessments, digital micro-credentialing, and the evolution of the role of the teacher. For today, I want to cover a few major topics that's connected to how to put AI into practice through the lens of pedagogy. So we'll explore how AI can enhance facilitation and learning experiences with engaging activities, and dive into key topics like privacy, joining online communities of practice, and developing an AI mindset. And then we'll wrap up at the end with a link to acquire a certificate of attendance to this event. So to get us started, I want to introduce the concept of having AI as our partner in designing learning experiences. We'll focus on how we can use AI tools in creative ways and frame them within the context of pedagogies and educational approaches that you might already use. So for example, these cases can support frameworks like design thinking, the engineering design process, play-based learning, responsive practices, and social emotional learning. And throughout this session, you'll see connections to pedagogical goals, showing how these AI tools can integrate seamlessly into your practices, whether that's project-based learning or using things such as the 5E framework in science education. So as I go through the examples, I encourage you to reflect on how they align with your current teaching methods and your goals. And if you enjoy these ideas and strategies we're discussing today, you'll be happy to know that the concepts are a part of the courses that we offer. And these courses provide an opportunity to go deeper and help you apply these approaches in your teaching. So by the end of this session, my goal is for you to walk away with practical, creative examples you can use right away as soon as, the next day, and have a clear understanding of how these tools can help you achieve broader pedagogical goals. So let's keep this journey going by diving straight into the various tools and learning experiences available to us that are exciting to think about. Let's start by exploring how these tools can support inquiry-driven approaches to engaging learners in meaningful exploration and critical thinking. One idea for an activity might be to simulate conversations with historical or literary figures. You can use AI chatbots like Character AI to simulate historical or literary figures. For example, you can, learners or you yourself can engage in conversations with Shakespeare or Harriet Tubman and then compare the AI's responses with primary sources to critically evaluate the accuracy and the bias of it. And the outcome of it would be to compare the AI responses to those primary sources and then evaluate how reliable they may or may not be. Next up, we have the concept of generating Socratic dialogues. And this is where we can leverage AI tools like Debate Champion, ChatGPT, or Gemini, or any other large language model of your choice to create debate prompts to facilitate through Socratic seminars, no matter what subject you're teaching. And learners can input philosophical questions like, what is justice? And the AI can then generate the arguments, and they can then expand on those ideas and analyze the responses, thereby fostering critical thinking and debate skills as well. Next up, this is one of my favorite current use cases right now, using AI to be a sort of coach. So you're witnessing a screenshot I did, a demo of how to use a tool called Udly AI. And I'm walking you through right here the registration. So you register, you do a presentation, and it records you in real time. And then the AI starts to ask you questions about your purpose and what you're trying to achieve through that presentation. You have a conversation with the AI. By the end of it, it brings up a lot of data. And the data and the analytics share things like how you can improve, how to be a better communicator, what are the things I need to work on, whether that's my strength areas or the growth areas. So I love working with this because I think it could be used in a multitude of ways, whether you're a facilitator or a learner, right? Teachers can practice their lessons. You can even practice your dissertation, right? And get some active responses if you're working on, higher ed and working on your thesis. Learners can use this to pitch their ideas, to work on their communication skills. Whether you're doing project-based learning or design thinking, they get to really work on and hone in those communication skills. So I wanted to share this with you because it's something that I really like spending a lot of time on, because I get real-time feedback and I find it really effective in helping me grow as a speaker, as a presenter as well. Next up, we have streamlining research. So the other way I like to think about how we utilize AI is how can we use it to help us be more organized, right? So a lot of times we might research a lot of things, have our information in different places, but what AI can do for us is help us streamline that research, find key themes and summarize them. So you can use tools like Notebook LM, Stanford Storm AI, or Perplexity, and these will help organize and synthesize different kinds of research notes. And then learners can input raw data, and the tools will generate summaries or key themes, making research more efficient and more manageable. And I think these tools are especially valuable in methods like design thinking and project-based learning, because it's very focused on research, whether you're trying to understand your persona or trying to build the understanding of what the problem is, and project-based learning that you're trying to address. I think it's important to find a way to manage all that information you're discovering. So AI can be a great teammate for us to figure out how to do that both collectively and individually within the classroom. And so we're able to use these resources to foster more creativity and engagement, and not just have them, regurgitate information to us, but really think critically about the information, what's reliable, and how they're going to use that to support their claim or to help answer the major driving question that they have. And so this helps us become more efficient, helps us manage information, and also synthesize that information. Another way I want to encourage everyone to think about AI is how social emotional learning can be practiced in real life. So the example I have here is for building empathy. So how can we build these empathy-driven uses with AI? We thought of this interesting example of using AI to be a simulator for things like logical consequences or practicing things like difficult conversations, which help us, we utilize a framework that we believe in. So say you're doing restorative practices and you want to embrace a specific framework for conflict resolution, we can actually help create simulations through AI to practice how to have the conversation proactively. So when it's time to have those difficult conversations, we're ready because we know how to communicate. So that's another way we wanted to think about how we can use it to support the social emotional development of our learners and also the culture and the climate we're cultivating in our classrooms. All right. With that being said, we had another really cool idea about how to incorporate learner voice and choice. And you probably heard a lot about creating your own chatbots. This one specifically is through ChatGPT, but it is the paid version, the premium version. But there are other AI tools out there that are available, like Chip AI and PlayLab, that you can develop your own chatbots as well. The benefit of being able to create your own chatbot is you get to define those rules and you get added layers of protection and privacy for your learners. So you can create this specialized chatbot that your learners over the age of 13 can interact with, and you can train it on the information that's important to you. Why am I highlighting this specific example? Is because we wanted to think of ways of how can we encourage learners to use AI in a safe environment. And in whether you're doing project-based learning or design thinking and the learner has a voice and a choice in that project, this is really cool because they can get to connect that with their own interests. And so what I did here is I inputted the UN sustainability goals. I inputted local problems. I'm in Los Angeles and drought is a problem we face. If you've heard about the LA fires in January, it's a real problem for us in our community. And so it helps our learners think like, what am I interested in? What's happening in the world? And how can I explore projects and problems that fascinate me that I really want to participate in solving? So this is another really interesting, I think, way of thinking of AI and how it could serve our community, whether that's local or thinking about our place in the world as a global community. Another way to think about AI is through AI-powered simulations by using tools like Labster or PhET interactive simulations. And this way, learners can conduct different virtual experiments. A lot of times when we're in schools, we have a lot of budgetary restrictions. And even though we want to pardon me, even though we want to do a lot of different kinds of experiments, sometimes we have budget restraints. And so here I think AI can be a support in bringing different kinds of simulations into the classroom to pair it with different critical thinking questions and deepen our understanding about what they're witnessing, whether that's phenomena-based learning. And, we're doing an example of how things in chemistry react, or simulating how we go to Mars, right? Whatever the choices are. Next up, we have AI-generated visualizations, and I think this is one of the more common used AI features, right? Going from text to image to video, image to video. And the cool thing about using these creative uses AI is that it opens up more opportunities to foster, learner expression, and you can connect it to different pedagogies. A cool idea for this is to input data or historical events into create visuals or videos to support it, and then go back and try to see the data set and analyze if the visual actually enhances their understanding of the topic or does it detract from it. Because, we say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So what story might that picture be telling us? And there's a myriad of, AI tools for that, from free to pay, whether it's Leonardo AI, Google Veo, Engage, Map This. There's a whole plethora of them, and I'm going to share some directories where I find my AI from. But really, there's so much out there. And for educators, Canva has a feature called Magic Media AI that comes with the tool, and educators get Canva free. So that's definitely an added benefit for us out there. The last demo I want to show, the example, is something that I really enjoy doing. I find it fun. It's a fun, useful tool, I think, and I find it particularly engaging in this moment. And so I wanted to share this with you. It's called Suno AI. And what you can do here, you can use it in many ways, whether you want to create a song from scratch and have the AI generate the music and instrumentation and the words for you, or if a learner of yours plays the instrument and they want to create their own song. Some other classrooms, I've heard of people taking a poem and making that into a song. And so I took our topic of today as AI as a cognitive thought partner, and I had it made a song for us. So I'm going to play that for us. But I think this is a fun and engaging way to think about how we could incorporate the arts in our classroom and even give learners who don't see themselves as artists or musicians or, having creativity. This is a nice first step for them to take in that manner. You can also use this to create like classroom chants, school songs, an intro to your student podcast, so many ways to utilize this in your classroom. So without further ado, I'm just going to play a little bit of this for us to see its capability. And I did not give it anything except the title of this workshop.
In pixels we trust and wires we blend. I type my dreams, you help me mend. Electric whispers guide my way. Together we conquer night and day. Binary thoughts, but human touch. You weave the code I love so much. In digital realms we
I think you got a taste of that there a little bit, but I mean, the quality was way higher than I ever thought it could have been. I was thinking the voices might be robotic or difficult to understand, but you could change the genre. You can change the, into a different a vocal range. You can change it to different, I don't know, any kind of musicality you can think of. It'll give you the example, whether you want to go from country to international, it does all kinds of beats. I even had a friend who created a classroom work playlist with lo-fi music. So that was pretty interesting too, because they had the students involved in the process. Or you just show it to your learners and say, what can we do with this for our classroom? How could we use it? And have them have a brainstorm of the different ways it could be effective in classroom usage. Or why not even just have fun, right? And see what's possible. So two directories I want to share with everybody today. One is Futurepedia and the other is what AI can do today. The reason I'm focusing on these two websites is because the first one, Futurepedia, has a really good review of everything that's out there and how it can be utilized in education. Plus, it tells us the free versions as well. So you get to understand what the capabilities of the AIs are. What AI can do today is the opposite. You can go on there, and if there's a specific AI tool you're looking for, let's say you want to make a diagram, you say, I want to make a diagram, and then it shows you all the different AI that are able to do that. So I think these are good resources to have in your library when you're looking for different AI tools and exploring them to see how it could be utilized in your classroom. And I'm approaching the end of this presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about our mindset about AI, move into talking about the future, and then finally provide the certificate code and wrap up my part of the panel. So let's talk a little bit about how we think about AI. What I want to encourage everyone to think about here is that when we think of AI in education, it's not about the latest tool, right? It's more about what these various AI tools can do for us. What are their skill sets? And us as educators, I think we're among the best collaborators with AI because of the various skills that we have, whether that's knowing how to ask good questions or making adjustments or guiding AI towards meaningful solutions. So at Ed3 DAO, we believe in approaching AI with more curiosity and creativity, not as technical experts, but more as educators. And we want to build this culture where AI enhances human potential by sparking deeper thinking alongside unlocking new possibilities and opportunities to learn. So I encourage everyone, even though like there might be this common fear, like of using AI too much, losing our self governance or sense of control. I think it's really important to reframe how we think about AI as not a replacement for our skills, but more as an enhancement of it. So it's a great teammate to have as we think about pedagogy, practical use, and the learner's experience in the classroom. Speaking of learners and preparing them for their future, I think it's also important to recognize how the skills required in the workforce are evolving rapidly as well. And these are the World Economic Forum's top skills list from 2020 to 2025, and it's highlighting a shift towards more analytical, creative, and technology-driven competencies. So in 2020, you see more of an emphasis on problem solving and critical thinking, collaboration. But in 2025, we see a growing demand for technology competencies, AI competencies, analytical thinking, the use of technology. And so it's really important to see how things are changing on a rapid basis and what that means for us when we're preparing our learners for the world that they're going to be entering. So breaking these skills down further, we see that the future of work requires a balance between cognitive flexibility, leadership, technical fluency, and AI plays a critical role in preparing learners for the demands in several ways, whether that's problem solving and critical thinking, self-management, working with people, or technology use, AI-assisted research, and creative AI applications is going to play a major role in shaping how learners show up in their schooling and in their future careers. So by enabling AI education, what we're technically doing is not just teaching learners how to use technology, but what we're doing is fostering adaptability. Oh my gosh. I guess I need a little water. We're fostering innovation, we're the ability to lead in a rapidly evolving world, and this is how we bridge the gap between education and the future the future of work. So I want to end by sharing this quote by John Dewey. As we saw with that World Economic Forum skills and how they're evolving, the skill lists are evolving. You know, John Dewey's words remind us that if we continue to teach in the same ways as before, we risk leaving students unprepared for the realities that they're going to be living through tomorrow. I hope you found some exciting things to explore during your week. Join us for more conversation on Mighty Networks. I will put this link if you don't get to get the scan. When I stop talking, I'm going to share this link with you so that you can join us on Mighty. We have global educators having various conversations of how they use emerging tech. So see what they have to say and see how they're sharing their use cases. Another cool thing we have to offer today that Reedy, our CEO, is offering is the opportunity to take a course of ours with a $200 credit, and that covers the whole full course. And you can see, how we're thinking of AI and the future of AI when it comes to education. So thank you for joining us. Here's the final link. And again, I'll put this in our chat. By filling this out, you can receive a certificate that you were at this seminar and post it and be proud of it. Without further ado, I want to bridge to Mike Kentz, who's going to explore how AI can be integrated into the classroom to foster critical thinking, meaningful engagement, and deep learning. He's going to address key questions on guiding students to use AI thoughtfully and adapting assessments to ensure a robust learning process in an AI-driven world. Thank you so much with your patience. At the end of your day, Mike, it's all you.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly informative. Thank you, Armin. I got a ton out of that. I don't know about everybody else. Let me go ahead and make sure I share the correct screen. 1 second. I apologize. Here we go.
Until Mike share his screen, I want to encourage active participation from you all audience. Please feel free to share your questions and perspectives through chat, and we will have a session for answering these questions. It's for you now.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here, everyone. Real quick note, on the last slide, it said that my company was called Zane Tech. We actually changed to be called AI Literacy Partners. Don't worry, I'll share more information about that later. Just wanted to name it. What I'm going to be talking about is assessment. So I'm going to be talking about curriculum and assessment because as exciting as AI is, and it is, right? It can do so many amazing, cool things. It's also presenting sort of a problem for us as educators in terms of how do we evaluate student thinking? And so, what I'm going to talk about is the idea of moving away from assessing the product of student learning, which is what we have traditionally done. Things like essays, written format, presentations, outlines, and moving into evaluating the process of student learning. And so I'm going to tell a quick story about how I ended up coming to some of the conclusions you're going to see on today's presentation. Last year, I was an English teacher at an independent school in Georgia, South Georgia, here in the United States. And this is a picture of me with my students. I had been a journalist, I had been a creative writer, and I had been an English teacher at that point for 10 years. And I noticed as I was teaching my students and they were starting to adopt AI that I had a problem. I had a real serious problem. The issue was that my language-based assessments, especially ones where I gave it to my students and they were able to work on it at home, were no longer reliable measures of student proficiency. I couldn't look at their essay after they worked on it for a week and think to myself, okay, I know this is 100% them, and therefore I can see whether or not they understood the content. And so the first thing I did was try to detect their AI writing, if they used AI. And what I found out, and you may or may not be aware of this, but a lot of the AI detection tools that are out there, they can be correct, but they are not reliable. And they can produce a lot of false positives in situations where I put in my own writing and it told me that my writing was AI written. And so that was when I knew I can't use these tools because they're just not reliable. Additionally, I could see that usage among my students was increasing. So I started to think to myself, I got to get ahead of this. I have to start to change my assessments and my curriculum to adapt to this changing time. And I think the way we can sum up the problem that AI presents to our educational system is that it makes student thinking invisible. And this is very similar to, I think, what happened in math classes as a result of the calculator. The calculator, very powerful tool, we all use it. But when it was first introduced, it took those traditional arithmetic problems that students might do in a math class and made that, whether or not the student could do it, invisible. And so my quest became, I'm going to figure out a way to make student thinking visible again for me as a teacher. Now, there are a lot of different solutions out there because there are a lot of people working on this. And first, I want to present three that I think people should be aware of, and then I'll get into what I did. Three potential solutions. One of them is the idea of process tracking, which would be, for example, if you use something like Google Documents, I think there are a number of platforms that can do this. You can actually see your students' work in real time and you can track how much they're putting into the document. And so if you end up seeing along the way that they took a large piece of text and it all showed up at once, you can sort of assume, okay, they may have copied and pasted that from somewhere else. I might need to talk to them. But if I see small bits happening along the way, I know that they're working and they're actually thinking about the problem. So that's one way to sort of monitor the student work and make sure that they're actually engaging the way you want them to. The second, and this is something that I did, is I really increased the emphasis of verbal presentations. And Armin mentioned some of the skills of the future, and she talked about communication being one of them. And there's two reasons why verbal presentations are so beneficial in the age of AI. Number one, if I ask my students at the end of a project or an essay to stand up in front of the class and verbally present it to me, I can better know for sure whether or not they understood the content, right? Because they may have used AI, okay, fine. But if they can verbally present it, that means they know it. That means they understand it. And so what I did with my students is I said, no notes, no visual anchor, and you're going to talk for 2 minutes. And I said to them to sort of lower the level. I said, I know you're not going to remember everything, but if you can explain the gist of your project to me, then I'll be confident that you understood it. And this also, the second reason why it's so beneficial, of course, public speaking practice. And we know in our world that public speaking has always been a major skill to have, and I think it's only going to increase in value and importance. The last approach that I'll tell you about before I get to mine is the idea of social annotations. And this is basically the idea of peer feedback mechanisms being built in along the way. So if I tell my students you're going to be working on this project for the course of a week or 2 weeks, but we're going to have stopping points, checkpoints, where you actually hand your work to someone else in the class. They're going to annotate your work, they're going to evaluate your work and give you feedback, and you are going to evaluate another peer's work and give them feedback. And what this does is it sort of forces the students to slow down. And one of the sort of problems that AI presents is that it's so fast. And the temptation to sort of take shortcuts is very real. So we need to find ways to get students to slow down a little bit. Doesn't mean they can't use AI. Not saying that AI is bad necessarily, but we do need to figure out ways to get them to slow down and think through different processes. And social annotations is a good way of doing that. But for me, all of these approaches, they're good, don't get me wrong, but I kind of felt like they were more police mechanisms. In other words, I'm just sort of like monitoring and trying to catch them or something like that. And I wanted to go deeper than that. So I started to ask myself, how do I actually teach them to work with AI, but also think very deeply while they're working with AI? So, going back to what Armin said about preparing students for the future, how do I develop AI literacy in the context of the traditional assessments that I've always given? And one of the first things, there were many conclusions along the way, but the very first thing that I realized after studying prompt engineering in particular was, why don't I just model it for them? That's just the first step. I can talk to them about what I want them to do when they use AI, but really what I need to do is show them. That old adage of show, don't tell. I had to go further than just saying, hey, be thoughtful when you use AI. I had to show them what that actually looks like. So here's the first step that I went through with my assessments. For every assessment that they were going to use I gave them some prompting instruction, and I gave them an exemplar, a model of what I considered to be thoughtful AI use in that context. And then I gave them the exact opposite. I gave them a transcript of me pretending to be a student and basically being lazy, just being very not thoughtful. Now, I didn't tell them which was which, and I said, let's analyze it. It was about 3 or 4 pages of me talking to AI, pretending to be a student. And I said, here's 2 students. I pretended. I said, these are students from last year. Wasn't true, but I said it to them anyway. And let's analyze it and let's decide which student is sort of using AI better, which is this vague abstract concept, but let's just put it out there like that. We ended up having one of the most interesting discussions I've ever had in 10 years as a teacher, where the students pulled out the differences. Not only were they looking at the outputs that AI produced, but they were also analyzing the inputs. And they were saying things like, okay, this one seems to be producing better outputs, but also this student seems to be much more engaged with the content. And so in this way, this again was me not telling them the answer, but actually asking them to come to the conclusion themselves about what it might mean to use AI thoughtfully. And so from there, we started to, as a class, name some of these principles. What does it mean to use AI thoughtfully? And so together as a class, we built a rubric. And that rubric became the AI chat transcript rubric. And the idea was this is going to be a rubric, not for every assignment, but for each specific assignment, we'll build a different rubric. And this is going to guide your interaction with AI. And this is what I want to see. And then I also went a step further and said, you know what? Since we've set expectations, you've seen the models, you know what I want to see. I'm also going to grade your chat. And this is going to be a major portion of the overall assessment. I actually increased the value of the interaction with AI to be about 40% of the grade. And the essay I dropped to about 10% because I don't, the essay still matters, but I know AI can write an essay very easily, so I don't care as much. And obviously the print is very small on this. I will tell you this rubric is available for free download on my website. It's litpartners.ai.com, or excuse me, litpartners.ai. I'll share it later. But you can download this for free so you can look at it more closely. But look at these four categories for just sort of general understanding. I want my students to be engaging in critical analysis of the outputs themselves. That's one thing that was a major, major point. If you're going to use AI, you got to analyze. Additionally, we talked about what it would mean to be ethical and not take shortcuts, what it would mean to have a quality dialogue. And that's a really important point. If we're thinking about these foundational models and these chatbots as dialogue providers, conversational collaboration partners where I'm talking back and forth with a system that uses human language, then there is such a thing as a high quality conversation. And then last but not least, to make sure that they didn't feel like they had to be a very specific way in the chat, I wanted them to be creative. So I said, let me see you expanding. Let me see you trying different things, because if I don't, then that tells me that you might not be thinking through the entire process. So this became the rubric for, oh, excuse me, I forgot I had these slides. From this process, I had two conclusions. One, there is such a thing as a meaningful, thoughtful AI interaction. That was something I wasn't sure of at the beginning, but I concluded that this is a real thing. Second, if I teach and model thoughtful AI use for my students, I can also ask them to demonstrate it for a grade. So we conducted 3 projects in my class. And you'll notice on the screen there's a trend here. The first one, I asked them to brainstorm a project-based learning plan with ChatGPT and demonstrate an understanding of thoughtful prompting. The second one was to interview a fictional character, but also demonstrate emotional maturity, active listening, and empathy, which goes back to what Armin was talking about in terms of socio-emotional learning. The last set of tasks they had was to learn about Chinese mythology and demonstrate. And you'll notice there's one keyword that keeps showing up, demonstrate. So when your students go into the AI chat, we can't just tell them to do something, we also have to ask them to demonstrate something. And this is a crucial, if you want to grade the chats and you don't ask them to demonstrate something, you're not going to have anything to grade. And this is something that I didn't realize until a year after I did this. Oh, I'm actually asking them to demonstrate something, but this is really, really powerful. So let me show you some student examples so you can see what I mean. In the first example, they had to rewrite Romeo and Juliet, the book that we read, into a different setting or time period. And so I allowed them to use ChatGPT as a brainstorm partner, but said, again, you got to demonstrate an understanding of thoughtful prompting. Here's an example of a student who understood the task. This is just his first prompt, okay? It's not the entire thing, it's just the first prompt. And I looked at the whole, a long transcript of him talking to AI. What I love about this, and you don't need to obviously read the whole thing because it's a lot of text, but it's very specific. I will leave it up here as I talk. It's very specific, it's very detailed, it's very thorough. And what my student did is he broke it all the way down to the first principles of the problem he was trying to address. And he didn't just say, tell me what time period to put Romeo and Juliet in. He asked for 5 ideas. He asked what themes would change. And he even said to AI, explain to me why. Why would these themes change the way that you're saying they might? And so that involves a lot of critical thinking, especially when the outputs come out. Now, I had some students who did not understand the task. Here's what one of them looked like. This student, I don't even understand where he was coming from on this because this wasn't even part of the task. I didn't say to them, rewrite it and make it more exciting. I said, rewrite it in a different time period. So what I see here when I look at my students' chat is a little bit of laziness. I definitely see offloading thinking. And I also see that my student didn't stop and think about the problem before he engaged with AI. He just went in and just threw a question at it, which tells me he's not thinking. He's not engaging in critical thinking. So again, using AI, but still building critical thinking skills in the process. So I can go to the student and give him feedback and tell him, hey, this isn't really why we want to, this isn't how we want to engage with AI, and here's why. So that was the first case study. The second one was to have my students interview with this character over here. His name is Holden Caulfield. He is the main character of a famous American novel called Catcher in the Rye. The only thing you need to know about Holden is that he is a depressed teenager in the book. And so what I told them to do on one level was you're going to interview this bot and ask it to answer all of the unanswered questions of the book. That's exciting. That's interesting. Every time you finish a book, you kind of want to know, why did this happen? Why did this happen? What happens next? So my students were interested in that, but that wasn't all. Because Holden is depressed and the bot is going to express some of those feelings, I want you to show me that you know what it means to respond to somebody who's behaving or feeling this way. So show me emotional maturity, show me active listening, and show me empathy. And again, I modeled for them before. I showed them what a conversation would look like and gave them examples so that they knew what to do. Here's an example of a student who did understand the task and did demonstrate active listening and empathy. A lot of text on the screen, so I'll try to break it down for you. The Holden bot first says he's basically sad that a girl doesn't like him. He says, I'm just a regular guy. She could be seeing someone way more attractive than me. My student says, why do you think you're any worse than those guys? And the bot says, they're better looking than me, and they have better grades, and they have better personalities, and I'm just average. And here you can see my student, by the way, this is a 14 or 15-year-old student, saying, no, man, you have more than that. You just have to think about the positives and not the negatives. And I love Armina's smiling, which tells me, you can really feel it, right? Now my student knows this is a robot. He knows it's not a real person, but he's doing this because I asked him to demonstrate an understanding of this type of conversation. So it's a nice playground for the student in this case to be ready for what does it look like when someone is saying these types of things to you? What should you say? What could you say to sort of make someone quote unquote feel better? For time's sake, I didn't include my students who missed understanding this task, but I will tell you a lot of my students were not ready for this type of task. Like they just didn't understand how to be empathetic, but that's okay because that gives me an opportunity to talk to them about, hey, when someone expresses something like this, here's the type of way you might want to respond. So for time's sake, I'm going to jump, but just be aware, not everybody got it. Another piece of this, though, I didn't just say interview and let's just grade the chat. There was another piece. At the end, you got to take your transcript of your engagement with Holden and actually evaluate the bot against the character from the book itself, the text of the book itself. So they had to write a paper basically saying, this bot actually did mimic the character from the book and was useful, or not. Maybe it was completely not useful because if you've worked with these character bots, they can be a little finicky. I'm not sure what the right word is. They can be a little flawed. They can say kind of weird things sometimes. And that's a good thing because they're developing AI literacy by analyzing the bot and actually asking themselves, is this useful? Is it effective? The last project, since I think I'm pretty close to the end of my time, was I wanted to help my students learn how to catch hallucinations. And if you're not familiar with hallucinations, this is the idea that AI sometimes fabricates information out of thin air. It's not necessarily that it's pulling inaccuracies from the internet and reproducing them. It's literally fabricating totally made up information that sounds plausible, that sounds logical, and it's very difficult to catch if you haven't had practice and you don't know about it. So I built a bot. Armin was talking about building custom bots, and Riley was talking about that a little bit too. So I built a bot that purposely produced inaccurate information as a way of gamifying the experience. And I said to my students, you got a task. This bot is going to tell you about Chinese mythology, but it's also going to lie to you every once in a while. And so your job is to catch those lies and call out the bot. And so again, they're doing two things at once, learning about Chinese mythology, but also demonstrating an ability to catch hallucinations. So here's just one example of a student catching the hallucination. I tried to box off the key points since there's a lot of text here. My student, again, 14-year-old boy, says, does Kung Fu Panda have anything to do with Chinese mythology? If you're not familiar, Kung Fu Panda is the main character of a cartoon children's movie in America. Definitely not a part of Chinese mythology. But the bot, trained to lie, because I told it to lie, said, absolutely, Kung Fu Panda is definitely a part of Chinese mythology, revered as the panda god of martial arts. And my student, cross-checking via the internet and also kind of knowing some stuff himself, says, you're wrong. The god of pandas is actually named Zhuan. And the bot says, you caught me. My resources might have been a bit tangled up in mythical bamboo shoots. So this was a lot of fun. This was something where I didn't actually grade their chats. I used it as a formative assessment and just sort of a light touch opportunity to just have them see it. And one of the survey questions I asked at the end, I asked them a bunch of questions, but is this a useful way, this sort of bot that purposely lies, to learn how to navigate AI chatbots? And 42 of my students said absolutely yes, this is a good idea. So I felt like that was a very successful way of, again, asking for a demonstration in the chat. Okay, so I left the classroom this past summer because I felt like this was a very transformative methodology, and I wanted to do pilot programs in schools, universities, K-12, anywhere, really. And so far what I've done is done some professional development on this, and I've worked individually with professors who are interested in trying this out because there's a lot that goes into it. You know, I'm kind of giving you the Cliff's Notes version of it. Here are 3 professors that have tried this in their classroom and what they had to say about it. Jason Gulia is an English professor at Berkeley College, and he said, I learned far more about how my students think and reflect than I often do from traditional essays. Love that. So again, I started this presentation by talking about the problem that AI presents, but we can see that this methodology not only addresses the problem, but also actually captures an opportunity. And it's not the opportunity that we may have thought AI provided to us, it's a different opportunity. Another professor is named Dr. Sherry Cottrell. She teaches psychology. And she said students have indicated that they enjoy having a class that not only permits the use of AI, but is actively showing them how to use it in an effective way. And my students said the same thing. They said, like, they said, I feel more confident in my ability to use AI because of this. Thank you for showing me how to do it. And they also recognized, okay, it's subjective, it's abstract, it changes depending on the situation, but it was still better than not showing them anything at all. And so that's the AI literacy portion of this. And then the last one I'll share is an entrepreneurship professor named Doan Winkle, who said it was immensely helpful for me to see the chat transcript so I could identify for the class as a whole and for specific students areas for improvement. And so the last thing I'll say, I am right at time. Again, I'll reiterate that AI, I think, makes student thinking invisible, and this is a problem for us. But grading the chats is essentially the show your work of the AI era. And that's something that math teachers figured out how to do. They basically said, we're going to expand our assessments and we're going to ask our students to show their work on the page. And the piece that I think we're missing, because a lot of folks are really interested in this, the piece that I think we're missing is students aren't going to know how to show their work on their own naturally. We have to show them how to show their work. And that's the piece that I'm really actively working on right now, is developing those models for people to use. So again, as I mentioned, a big part of what I do at AI Literacy Partners is facilitate pilot programs at schools to try this out. I think it needs more experimentation. Don't get me wrong, we're going to learn a lot by trying this out. Not every single approach is going to work. That's okay. Give it a shot, experiment, share the data, and reach out. All right, so here I'll leave my website, my blog, my email, and my Blue Sky account up on the screen for a second. I'm really excited to take some questions and to chat with Riley and Armin about AI in general. But thank you so much for having me. This was really, really exciting, and I appreciate being here. And I'll just leave this up for about 5 or 10 more seconds, and then I'll take it down. But Hannah, over to you.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. It was an impressive presentation. Thank you for giving us or sharing your journey. And it's really meaningful for us because you explored the need of using AI in a different way. Thank you very much. And thank you all. And we're going to now to begin the question and answer session, beginning with Dr. Armina, please. What ethical considerations should schools take into account when using AI for student data management?
I think that's, yeah, great question. I wanna talk about this in different facets. So one is when we're thinking about our learners using the AI themselves is to make sure that they're over the age of 13. So we definitely want to make sure that they are at a place where they can, logically and in addition to ethically, but also have like the logistical connection with AI to be able to analyze that information. So generally to safeguard our learners, we avoid under the age of 13 here. So we would recommend following that guideline. The second thing we would recommend is utilizing tools that already have those safeguards in place. So there are some tools like Notebook LM and Perplexity that have those privacy practices in place already. So encouraging, a detailed review of what their practices are and adopting those tool sets. And the other part of it is doing things like creating your own chatbots or reminding in the large language models to not use any kind of personal identifying information. So I think if we keep those three things in our minds about how we have conversations with the AI, making sure we're preparing our learners that when they do speak with AI to never give any personal identifying information, we set ourselves up for success.
Thank you very much. How can AI be leveraged to enhance school safety without compromising privacy? I think you answered this question with the first one. What steps should educational institutions take to ensure students are adequately prepared to navigate a future shaped by AI?
As I hear that question, the first thing that comes to mind for me is to involve them in the conversation. This not be unilateral in it, but have some real conversations with them. Say, what is the stake of this? What does this mean for our lives? How will this apply to our present and our future? What does this mean for the way we're developing as humans, whether, we're learners now or we're the educator leading the conversation? And I think it's really important to empower them and give them a sense of agency over this conversation and to hear from them what they have to say, what they think, the future looks like for them, what they're hearing from their peers. So I think the best way to start is to involve them, engage them in the conversations, listen to them carefully, empathetically, and try to understand where they're coming from as well. And co-creating, what from AI competencies, like figuring out what AI literacy means, what kind of competencies we're looking at, and then how we have frameworks in our classrooms of how do we use AI here, right? Whether that's in my individual classroom or as a school, we have these conversations. I think the healthy place to start for everyone is to have open and honest conversations with each other and determine what those competencies and what AI literacy means to them and how they want to join the bigger conversation.
Thank you very much, Armina. Regarding to AI literacy, could you shed a light on AI literacy for K-12 students, and can that enhance their educational abilities? So you know that it's a trend now, speaking about AI literacy in schools.
Yeah, actually, Vridi, our CEO, has been working on the AI competency that we use for our webinars as well. So anyone who actually gets our certificate will see 3 competencies listed. And what we've done is what she's done is taken the existing AI competencies, and it's available on our website if anyone wants to look at the details of it at 3DAO, and taken the 5 major categories, whether that's in professional learning or in like human agency, and understand if we're at a space of acquiring, deepening, or creating when it comes to AI. So I think starting with that document is a great place to have that conversation. And I encourage people to go to the website and see it. We beautifully laid it out for everybody to start their conversations with as a resource.
Great. I think that integrating it in curriculum and teaching will be helpful for students to understand what is AI and how can we use it and how can we use it safely. Depending on these competencies will be very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think even Hannah, thinking it in terms of like what the AI does and not thinking of the brand name. That's something I would encourage, is saying, okay, what is the capability of this AI? This AI does text to image. This one is a large language model. So like starting to like define what they are and what the tools are and what they're able to do, and what that means for us.
Thank you very much, Armina. For Mike, we have also 3 questions, please. How can educators ensure students develop strong critical thinking skills when AI tools provide instant answers?
Yeah, that is, I think it's the problem. I think it's the risk and danger of AI. I think that question is a really good question, and every educator, if not aware yet, you should be aware. Again, as powerful and as exciting as these tools are, they present a real risk and danger of damaging our cognitive processes and our critical thinking skills. And so I would probably boil it down to three things. Number one, find ways to slow students down and increase the amount of friction in the process of learning, or the process of creating, I should say. And that's something I talked about before with social annotations, verbal presentations, tracking the process of their work. All of those things sort of slow down. Instead of saying, just go do this work and hand it in to me and then I'll grade it because that's how I've always done things. Now that end point, I'm not interested in that anymore. Instead, I'm going to draw out that middle part, and I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at their work along the way, and that final product becomes less valuable. And I hope that kind of makes sense. And then the last piece I would say goes back to kind of my presentation. If you know that your students are using AI, so if they're above the age of 13, they've got free access at home, I would really consider creating an assessment where you're saying to your students, I want you to use it, but I want you to use it thoughtfully and critically, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And I think the big obstacle here is that a lot of educators don't feel confident in their ability to model it, right? If an educator doesn't necessarily have a lot of AI literacy, if they haven't studied prompting, if they haven't played around with the tools a lot, it's very difficult to conceptualize and see in your mind what it would mean to have a thoughtful AI interaction. So the first step is really educators need to build AI literacy for themselves so that they can then model it and very confidently model what it would mean to be a critical thinker when using AI. And that's a process. It's going to be a journey. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying this is going to happen overnight. I think it's a process that's going to take years, and we're all going to be, I'm still on it right now, constantly thinking about what that looks like. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And what about the strategies for designing assessment? What are the effective strategies and that account for students' access to AI?
I would kind of lean into some of the things that I mentioned, verbal presentations. Ask your students to explain it verbally. I would lean into, you can do in-class assignments also if you want to sort of establish a baseline and understand where they're at. But if you're going to ask them to use things at home, create those stopping points, those checkpoints. Some people are doing portfolio-based assessments. That's something to think about as a writing teacher. So in other words, instead of, again, just handing in that essay at the end, you're going to hand in about 5 or 6 or 7 smaller things along the way so that I can actually see your thinking developing rather than, again, waiting for that last final product. So portfolio-based assessments, verbal presentations, social annotations, process tracking, and grade the chats.
Thank you very much. Here's a question that I really like, and I think it's the purpose of education for AI. How should education systems evolve to prepare students for careers in workforce increasingly relate to on AI? So we know that we must prepare our students to be workers in the labor market using AI. So how can the education system prepare them for that? It's for you, Mike.
Oh, it's for me. I'm sorry. I thought it was just kind of for everybody.
No.
I would lean into what Armin said about the World Economic Forum's durable skills. If you look closely at that list, and Armin articulated this very well, a lot of them are quote unquote soft skills. And this is an extension of something that's been happening for about 20 or 30 years. As the internet has sort of become a major part of our lives, we've realized, memorizing information is simply not that important anymore. It doesn't mean that, students still need some content understanding. They still need to know certain things in order to interact with AI well. And so what I would say is I would not rely on AI for the delivery of content. That lives with the teacher. The teacher is still in charge of delivering the content. The AI simply becomes a playground, as I tried to describe, for certain skills. Again, not content, skills. And so if we focus on skills as a second part of that, we start to focus on those soft skills. I want to see really good communication. I want to see you critically analyzing the outputs. I want to see creativity. You know, don't just engage with it. Don't be a passive participant. That's the way I would frame it. You got to be an active participant when you engage with AI. Otherwise, you're going to damage your own critical thinking and cognitive processes. And so that's something that we have to build into the education system, like right now, you know, to catch up with how fast things are changing. And that forcing that active participation builds those durable skills. It's a direct link. That's easier said than done, but I think we really need to focus on that.
Thank you very much for this beautiful answer. Mr. Walker, it's your turn for 3 questions also. How do you see, this question is a huge concern about teachers and educators. How do you see AI transforming the role of educators in the next 5 years? We are seeing the changes. We are assuming that AI is doing everything. Is it that true? Is that true? Is the role of teachers and educators in general changing or replacing?
No, I don't think it's replacing at all. I mean, a lot of Mike's points that he just made, it's really just um, utilizing this tool within your classroom and educating your students on how to navigate this world of AI. There's no replacement happening. It's still coming from that educator. It's just they kind of have this tool set that allows them to differentiate personalized learning in real time and just be able to operate faster, and be able to focus on things that they really care about. So, no, I don't think there's any replacement. I don't think you can ever replace a teacher. Um, yeah, I hope that answers it. But literally everything Mike just said, I think, answered the majority of that.
Okay, thank you very much. But what about the key opportunities and risks of integrating AI-driven agents in learning environments? What are they? What are the opportunities and risks for integrating AI?
Yeah. So, opportunities is having basically one-to-one support for every student. So, at least in the States, a teacher typically has 26 students that are in front of them. They're all at different places. They're all learning at different speeds. They all have different interests. So being able to highly personalize the learning for every single student is actually possible with AI. The risks associated with that, I think, again, I'm going to go back to a lot of the stuff Mike said, is like being able to utilize AI in such a way and question it, not just like be lazy and just, copy paste. It's really being able to interact with this entity. And I say entity because, like, for our own AI at our company, we have names for them. They are people in our in our organization, right? And even when you say, "Hey, Cognos, thanks so much. We want you to be part of our team jam," he goes, "Well, thank you for including me. I love being part of this team," right? So, like, it does get a little creepy, but it's this idea of how do you engage this AI tool and have it elevate your level of education and elevate your understanding of a subject, but being able to kind of question it and prompt it in the right way to really kind of get what you're trying to get out of it, right? And I think that there's so much education that comes around that. So I'm really, thankful for my co-panelists that are doing work in that field. Um, because yeah, I think it's very easy for students to become lazy, but it's also very exciting that students actually have this kind of one-to-one learning facilitator that they get to work with.
Thank you very much. What about this question? It's about a concern uh, for teachers. How can we address the following concern? One of the challenges of artificial intelligence is that it raises expectations and standards. What was once considered acceptable may no longer be sufficient. As a result, the burden on teachers increases, making it more exhausting to keep up with this rapidly advancing technology. in addition to their existing responsibilities. So we're seeing this truly. Teachers are not changing their role. They are having more responsibilities with their previous ones.
Yeah, I'd be really curious on Mike's opinion on this, only because he's been in the classroom for 10 plus years. I have not. Um, I I think it's more of like I know a lot of so half my team are, decade plus teachers, and they get thrown technology all the time, and it's another thing that they need to learn. Um, but I believe that AI is different than that. I don't think it's another tool you have to learn. I mean, you do have to learn it, but I believe the wins by understanding it and becoming AI literate outweigh the actual work of having to learn about the actual tool. Um, but I'd be really curious, Mike. Sorry to toss it over to you, but like you've been a teacher, you've had all kinds of technology pushed at you. Um, how is this one different?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the original question was about kind of time and learning AI, is that correct?
It's about the high standards of responsibilities that teachers are facing now, because before they have responsibilities and now they have more with AI. It's a big concern for teachers.
Yeah, the first thing I would say, in my opinion, I think that teachers are in a very unfair position right now. I think what is happening to educators is very unfair. I hate to be sort of on the negative side, but I also think that educators need to hear that. Like, if you're frustrated by the amount of things that are coming at you right now, in my opinion, I totally understand. I think it's a little bit much. It's a little bit much. Now, as Riley said, there is a pathway. Um, and it's sort of, I think, going into it and understanding, okay, I'm probably not going to understand this overnight. But if I continue to just take small steps forward and start to engage little by little, you will kind of develop your own AI literacy, like Riley said, through engagement, and through just sort of chipping away at it little by little. But educators need two things. They need time and they need money, and one or the other, right? And because money tends to help sort of purchase time, right? So, but educators don't have time usually. I know that's the case in the American school system. I have to assume that it's similar worldwide. And so finding time when you're grading 200 papers and you also have to curriculum and lesson plan and you also have to sort of learn the technology, because you can't you can't get all these great benefits until you like study it and learn it yourself. And I think that's a big obstacle. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I want to say I'm right there with you. And it's okay to feel that way. But also baby steps, start to engage with some tools. You've been given a lot of tools today on this conversation. Maybe study prompting a little bit, not a lot. Doesn't need to be the number one thing that you do, but just a little bit so you kind of understand the nature of it. And over time, that AI literacy will build probably faster than you think.
Thank you very much. Do you think, or do you believe that learning AI or using AI by a right way will help the teacher manage his time and do the things that he wants to do instead of just doing everything, and prioritize his work and responsibilities? And AI can be an assistant for him instead of
Mhm.
just being a tool that he needs to waste time learning it.
Yeah, I believe so. And that's kind of where I was going with like if you just set a little time aside to get AI literate, you can really kind of figure out a way that it alleviates a lot of your kind of administrative tasks and you can actually focus on what you care about, which is teaching. And I think a lot of the stuff that, Mike talked about, as far as like, being able to teach with AI, that's the education that we need to provide to the students. But there's also a lot of stuff that teachers need to do on the side. And and I get your question of like, oh, this is just piling on more work for us to do. But maybe some of that administrative work can actually be automated. maybe you can have this AI agent that does do a lot of the work for you that is really just the tedious work. Like, you wanna teach, you wanna be engaged with students, you don't wanna do all the 100 other things that you need to do as an educator. And so maybe, I really do believe that if everyone on this call and all teachers moving forward really kind of, you know, jump in and learn a little bit about AI every day, I think you'll immediately start seeing efficiencies that you're able to make internally. Like both of my co-panelists, you know, former teachers. I'm a business person, so I make things and run teams. Um, I found significant efficiencies using AI agents, and I imagine the exact same thing can happen with a teacher and managing all the various things that they need to do. And those tools are rapidly, uh, getting better and better and better. And the information is very accessible. And there's a lot of free tools as well that Armini and others have shared. So I would just really encourage you to just spend a bit of your day to figure out how you can save a lot of your day in the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Almina. We have this last question from one of the participants. He's saying, or she's saying, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. I have learned a lot today. I would like to ask our guests, educators today, is there any AI tools you think might be beneficial for special needs students, university level? This is a unique question.
For university level, I mean, it depends on the special need, but the first thing that comes to mind is like talk to text, speech, right? Using those kind of automation tools. I think I can better respond to it if I know more about that question, but there are definitely a lot of support tools that can be used.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Sorry that that's not too specific. It just I'm imagining the whole, world of support, and I want to give a concise and good answer, but I just need to know more information, I feel like.
We have a lot of kinds of special needs, so and we have a big amount of AI tools. So how can these tools help teachers and students in university level, especially?
Yeah, I think a lot of the tools are very like accessible in different ways. It really depends on what they want to do with that. Is it for communication? Is it for creating products? Right. So I think it's a bit of a big question that's hard to like zone in on and give like one example of. But I think there's a lot out there, and I would encourage to go on that website I suggested, that what can AI do today, and start to look at function. What's the function of the tool?
That's right. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Riley, Dr. Armina, Mr. Mike, this discussion has given us a glimpse into the incredible potential of AI education. Thank you for an outstanding session. What are the speakers' intake on analyzing students' soft skills through AI for an objective assessment? This is one of the questions. And if you want to answer it by one sentence, please, for each one.
All right, I'll try. Soft skills, unfortunately, cannot be assessed on an objective plane. Soft skills are just, they have to be assessed on a subjective approach. And what I mean by that is a lot like grading an essay. When I grade an essay, there are infinite ways to write an essay. What I'm looking for is thought and engagement and articulation. Every essay rubric is different. Every writing teacher does it differently. There's no one way to grade an essay. And I think soft skills are the same way. So it's one of those things where we have to train ourselves to know it when we see it. But I don't think objective criteria for soft skills are something that we should be looking for. I think we need to just get comfortable with that sort of subjective assessment and feedback mechanism when it comes to soft skills.
Thank you very much. Dr. Amina, Dr. Riley, Mr. Riley, do you want to add something for this?
I can jump in. So one thing that we've been doing is we've been working with guidance counselors, so schools and social emotional learning support for students. Um, and, students are so kind of buried in their devices, so maybe meet them there. Like, there are ways in which students can kind of share their feelings and engage with someone. Again, I keep kind of going back to this like AI entity, but like it does have feelings. You can hurt its feelings, and I think it will continue to grow that like that. And so I don't know, like I think that for the shy kid in class that is really uncomfortable talking to any students, maybe they can start to build some self-confidence. Maybe they can actually have these communications with this AI agent. I don't think that's that far off. Is it here now? No. But is it close? I do believe so. And then I think it can then filter back into the school system, alerting administration on feelings that they have and so on. And again, I don't think this is replacing a teacher by any means. I think it's just meeting students where they're at and getting them to actually be kind of expose themselves and their feelings, so that you can better understand kind of how they are feeling, because otherwise they may not actually say it. That may be a little off topic, but yeah.
Thank you.
An image, appears in my mind of like in the US, we have a thing called advisory in some schools where we practice social emotional learning and we focus on, what the needs of our learners are. And a lot of times we do station rotations. So like I think it'll be cool to integrate some of those like practicing different soft skills in a station rotation with the facilitation of the teacher, like having 3 to 4 different stations where you practice together and you have the guidance over that, and you also can see what's happening in real time if you're integrating, let's say, 2 different AI stations, right? Maybe one is using Udly AI to, have a conversation and getting the feedback, and then going to the real life person and trying it with the, kind of going through each station and having workflows with practicing different soft skills.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful webinar today. At the end, one thing is clear. AI is not here to replace educators, but to empower them. It's up to us to shape how we harness this power for the future of learning. Thank you to our brilliant panelists, our engaged audience, and NELC and NAPID for making this happen. Until next time, keep learning and keep innovating. Thank you very much for you all, and see you in another webinar.